Yet another moment of bonhomie between the two leaders. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a phone call from US President Donald Trump for wishes on his birthday eve as he turns 75 today. The Prime Minister also voiced support for Trump's peace efforts in the ongoing Ukraine conflict, stating, and let me quote, "We support your initiatives towards a peaceful resolution of the Ukraine conflict." Trump also shared about the interaction on Truth Social, calling it a wonderful phone call with his friend Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He thanked Prime Minister Modi for his support on ending the Russia-Ukraine war. This was the first call between the two leaders since 17th of June. All right, I'm joined by Aman Sharma from the newsroom. Aman, if one were to just focus on this phone call, there have been overtures exchanged, in fact, extended by the US President. But this phone call has been that defining moment of the olive branch.
Well, surely, Akansha, it is a big icebreaker. You know, this phone call coming nearly 3 months after the two leaders had spoken over the phone last on June 17th. When Prime Minister Modi was in Canada for the G7 summit and Mr. Trump had left that summit early, came back to Washington, and they exchanged a 35-minute long phone call, which was also a tense phone call because PM Modi, made it very clear to Donald Trump that, US did not have any role to play in the mediation of a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. And Mr. Modi also did not stop by in the US on Mr. Trump's request then because India suspected a diplomatic ambush with Asim Munir also in the White House at around the same time when PM Modi may have arrived. So this phone call coming after a gap of nearly 3 months, I would say a big icebreaker, in a way also a culmination of the last 2 weeks or so of conciliatory messages between both the sides. First, Donald Trump made the initiative by, putting out a message that Narendra Modi was his dear friend. Right. He looked forward to speaking to him soon. Mr. Modi also replied with a conciliatory message. And now the phone call we were hearing since November 10th, in fact, from top government sources, that this phone call could happen very soon on the eve of Mr. Modi's birthday. Now Mr. Trump has called. It was the same day when the US trade representative, the chief negotiator Brendan Lynch, was also in India to meet his counterpart in Delhi. So India also issuing a statement, Akansha, after that meeting, that both sides have decided to fast track the negotiations for the bilateral trade agreement. So overall, I think the warmth in the ties is back. Next, everybody is now looking forward to when these two leaders could maybe have an in-person meeting. Will that be in Malaysia at the ASEAN, or will Mr. Trump live by his promise which he made to Mr. Modi on June 17th and travel to India for the Quad Summit sometime in November? All eyes are now on whether when these two leaders will next meet and maybe the bilateral trade agreement takes its, I would say its next chapter opens. And Piyush Goyal has been saying that they are very confident the first tranche could be signed in November. But we'll wait and see what happens next. Kansha, overall a very conciliatory messages from both sides.
Stay with me, Aman. I'm also joined in by Payal over there. Payal, at a time when the domestic politics in the country was reaching a new low, especially after Operation Sindoor and Prime Minister's stance was being questioned, is the phone call of September 16 a mark of how India has stood its ground, how Prime Minister Modi has held his ground?
A very important point that you really made. After Operation Sindoor, multiple questions were asked of the Indian government, especially Prime Minister Narendra Modi, domestically also saying, what really happened to the number of jets that we lost? What really happened? Why did Donald Trump announce this? Even though Prime Minister Narendra Modi, clarified this on the floor of the House that it was a bilateral decision and that the US and nobody has any role to play. But, the Indian government stood its ground. Akansha, they did not cross a boundary. They did understand that there is a certain set of, diplomatic ties that we have with the US, which extends beyond just mere trade ties as well. So India stood its ground. Prime Minister Narendra Modi took the country into confidence and said that no matter what price has to be paid, I will put India and Indians first as well. So over the last few weeks, Akansha, a lot of back and forth has taken place. We're given to understand a lot of back channel talks have taken place, and that probably could be one of the reasons you saw that message of praising Prime Minister Narendra Modi coming in from Donald Trump about 2 weeks ago. This call is extremely significant because for all over the world that have been questioning India's stand as far as the Russia-Ukraine crisis is concerned, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has always maintained that India's stand is not neutral. India has taken a stand, and India's stand is that peace should prevail and there should be dialogue and discussion that could really take place as well. Of course, the flow managers on behalf of the Indian government, whether it's Mr. Jaishankar or Mr. Piyush Goyal, have always been maintaining that things will gradually fall into place. But we're also given to understand that internally within the Trump administration also there's been a lot of pressure that has been put on him, saying that India is a country which is not going to buck down under pressure, and we should not, put under too much India under too much of pressure as well. So of course, Prime Minister Narendra Modi stood his ground. He promised the people of India that he will not let their interests suffer, and of course, now what it seems, what Aman was just saying, that there seems to be a climb down from the US as far as that is concerned. Earlier, the negotiators were supposed to come to India by the end of August. That actually got postponed. But the negotiators are very much there in India. And of course, talks are expected to go on that round. And government is very, very confident that by November, we will be having some sort of a good news coming our way.
Absolutely. Stay with me. And when you're talking about that good news, all eyes now are on that big moot question in terms of when can we expect a trade deal to conclude. Aman, that's why I want to ask you, the readout that's come out from the Commerce Ministry stops short of giving a formal date for the next round of negotiations. Also, the discussions that happened between Brendan Lynch and the Indian representative will not be really labeled as a formal round of negotiations. So what are you learning from your sources in terms of what can we expect next?
Well, yes, Akanksha, the yesterday's talks were not the official round of negotiation. This is more the ground being set, I think, for the sixth round of negotiations, which will happen between the negotiating teams in the days to come. But that said, I think, Akanksha, two things have very clearly happened from India's side that has softened the US. Number one, I would say the tough stand of the Indian government, not to buckle under any pressure. Many other countries completely panicked when US put heavy tariffs on them and, almost signed the dotted line with the US. India has refused to do that despite 50% tariffs being imposed on us on August 27th. Even after the additional tariffs came for us buying Russian oil, you saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi going for the SCO summit. That was, I think, the second big step. Having this substantive bilateral meeting with Vladimir Putin, traveling in his car for almost an hour, talking to him inside the car for almost an hour. I think all those were also, I would say, signals by Mr. Modi also to Washington that, look, you may want us to do certain things, but we are a very independent, sovereign country. We are a huge country, which is the third biggest economy in the world. You cannot dictate terms to us.
Right.
And that is what I think has served India's purpose well. I think US seems to have realized it, and that is why we see these conciliatory messages. I think the in-person meeting between both leaders, Akanksha, next is very, very crucial towards the progress of the bilateral trade deal. When that meeting happens, we are not sure, it can happen, as I said, at the ASEAN, or if Mr. Trump travels for Quad. That bilateral meeting between both the leaders will be extremely important to determine the way forward.
I want to quickly bring in Payal on the aspect of the war, because I think one of the most endearing parts of that message that was sent out by Donald Trump said, Narendra, thank you for your support on ending the war between Ukraine and Russia. Is this a direct indication of how much faith now Donald Trump himself, who's been tom-tomming or rather boasting about his own peace mediation efforts, now bestowing upon the Indian Prime Minister?
Well, frankly speaking, within the government circles, they say that they do not take anything. They take whatever Mr. Donald Trump says with a pinch of salt, because you never know when the next, onslaught is going to come from him as well. Despite the fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi did clarify with him that it was a bilateral decision to announce the ceasefire, he went on and on and on speaking about this on multiple occasions, taking credit for the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Having said that, India's always stood its ground. Like I was just mentioning, that whenever the world asks India that what is your stand on the Ukraine-Russia crisis, India's stand is very clear. We stand for peace. Prime Minister Narendra Modi shares an excellent equation with President Putin and also with Mr. Zelensky as well. Prime Minister has gone ahead and visited those two countries, elaborated and explained to them that war is never going to be a solution in today's world, and therefore peace and dialogue must really prevail. So that's been the role that he's really played. Also significantly, when the Ukraine crisis emerged first, India needed to evacuate its 21,000 plus students from Ukraine.
Right.
That happened without a single scratch coming on any student. Everybody was evacuated safely and soundly because Prime Minister Narendra Modi was able to dial the phone lines with both Mr. Putin as well as Mr. Zelensky to get our students a safe passage to move out of the country. That is why the Prime Minister came on the global stage and said that here is a leader, here is the world's largest economy,
Okay.
world's largest democracy who can actually, prevail on a very, very pressing situation as well.
All right, many thanks to you, Payal and Aman, for bringing us all those extensive inputs on that news story. Let me quickly bring in Ambassador Deepak Vora, who's joining me on the broadcast as well. Ambassador Vora, good to have you as always. From calling India a dead economy to Narendra, my friend, thank you for your efforts to resolve the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. What's your assessment of President Donald Trump's overtures to the Indian Prime Minister?
Well, thank you very much. Always a great pleasure to wake up to CNN. You are the best channel and you yourself are outstanding. Thank you very much. Ma'am, what can I say? The mercurial McDonald Trump has shown his mercurial nature once again. But the reality, and look at the timing, he called to wish Prime Minister on his 75th birthday, all of the world. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not just the leader of India, ma'am. He's a global statesman. He talks about the world being one family, etc. Now, the reason I mention that is very significant because you know that just the day before, the Pakistani fellow, some chap called Dar or something like that, he had said that India didn't want any mediation. And that kind of, I think, ended all of President Trump's hopes of getting whatever prize he was looking for. And now saying that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, thank you very much for helping with ending the Ukraine-Russia conflict. That means that Prime Minister Narendra Modi should be now the co-winner of that prize. So I find this, I take this with not just a pinch of salt, but a trainload of salt, because he might change his opinion. The reality is, I think he has been told by his trade fellows who are here that you can't ignore a market, you can't offend a market of 140 crore. Whatever that Bizarro fellow, what is his name? Peter Bizarro or something. Something like that. And then that Howard Sputnik, his commerce, not Sputnik, Putnik or something like that.
Howard
whatever
Lipnik.
he says,
Yes.
whatever he says, these fellows have now, I think slowly the realization is coming, where is your market? Europe doesn't have the money. China has said get lost. Russia and its whatever friends it has are not going to buy your stuff. That leaves India. I think this realization is coming. And I certainly, I see a change. He will come to India for the Quad meeting, ma'am. We are convinced about this. In fact, I think the advance team is already running around doing whatever they do. He will come and then, you know, he'll want the adulation, etc. And he'll say, well, we had some hiccups, but we've overcome them. And I, Donald Trump, now declare that we will be friends forever. Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, for declaring that. So, we welcome what he has said. At the same time, we remain wary.
Absolutely. Let's hope that this also translates into a more, a concrete deal that India and the United States are working towards, perhaps by fall of this year. Many thanks to you, Ambassador Vora, for joining in. Pleasure to speak to you as always. Now, Prime Minister Modi, as we all know, received that phone call on the eve of his birthday as he turns 75 today. 11 years into his tenure, the political brand he has built rests on one